Should we continue with CNN? Let's continue with CNN. Their White House correspondent Kaitlan Collins was with the president when he signed the executive order. And she told me Mr. Trump framed his decision as, and I quote, a solution.
The problems with that is, A, this is a problem that the president created, the argument goes, because, of course, this is a result of the president and his administration's zero-tolerance policy on immigration. That is precisely what is leading to these families being separated from their children when they cross over the border illegally. So the president is essentially chalking this up, saying it's his solution, though this is something he created we should keep in mind. Now, the question going forward is, what does this actually solve? And there seem to be a lot more questions than answers in this executive order that the president signed today. One of those being, what happens to the people who have already been separated from their parents? And it doesn't seem that they will be reunited, certainly not immediately, because their parents will still remain in these in detention centers while the kids have already been separated from them, and there is not going to be any government effort to reunite them. The next question is also what happens with this entire 20 days thing. Of course, there's this 1997 court settlement that says children can't be kept in federal immigration detention facilities for more than 20 days. Now, that court ruling still stands. Now, the Trump administration can try to overturn it, but if they don't, in 20 days, arguably, we could be back in the place where we first started before the president signed this executive order today.
Yes, this is fascinating, isn't it? So the president doesn't actually understand what happens next. The Justice Department, I'm just reading stuff from you and your colleagues on CNN, they've been unable to clarify whether family separations would end immediately or when and how families now separated would be reunited. So it feels again as if the president is making this up as he goes along.
It certainly is that, because that is evidenced by the people who knew about this executive order, which is not very many, certainly not Capitol Hill. And this isn't something that the president brought up when he was meeting with Republicans discussing this issue just last night. This is really something that was put together today at the White House. The president tweeted he was working on something. That is what gave it away, that maybe he had something in the works. But that comes, of course, after days of not just the president, but also his aides saying that he could not do anything executive-wise to fix this problem. Even the president said you could not do an executive action to fix this. Now, then, of course, today he goes and does something with executive action to fix this, which raises all these other questions and does raise a few questions. Certainly it's not at the top of the list, but it does raise a few questions about the credibility of this White House. You know, they've been saying for days, we can't do anything about this. Our hands are tied. The president goes and contradicts all of them, including himself, by signing this executive order today.
While he's been saying they can't do anything, the contempt, the anger, the sense of outrage has been growing and growing and growing. Now, we know that President Trump actually quite likes that stuff, particularly when it's coming from the liberal establishment, because it plays to his constituency. He once again is seen as the outsider. But clearly there is a sense it's starting to hurt him. Otherwise, he wouldn't have responded like this, right?
That is right. The political backlash to this was getting louder and louder, so loud that they just simply couldn't ignore it any longer. And I don't even think, though his base does like the outrage, they do like some of the things he does. They do like his zero-tolerance immigration policy, but they even don't like seeing these families separated, seeing these haunting images of these families being separated on the border. And, of course, all the questions that come along with that, like where the girls are being kept, young children. Of course, you saw that report about the babies and toddlers being kept in certain facilities. So the president realized that, because this wasn't just coming from Democrats. It was coming from members of his own party, even people inside of his White House. He said that the First Lady, Melania Trump, and his daughter and senior advisor, Ivanka Trump, both told him they didn't like the situation. The president said anyone with a heart wouldn't like a situation like this, which is ironic given the situation is the direct result of his administration's policies. So certainly the president got a sense of that. He knows that these images weren't playing well for him politically. But one thing I should note, our sources inside the White House did tell us that the president was insistent that the images that were being played on television and put on the front pages of newspapers, he said those images were the worst ones that the press was picking in order to take advantage of this situation. Of course, that is not true. Those were the images handed out by the government because cameras have largely not been allowed in these facilities.